And welcome back. Our next guest is an author, not just an author, he's an award-winning author, an educator, entrepreneur, Fulbright recipient, and also a TEDx speaker. In his novel, Resilience, Killing Fields to the Boardroom, he invites readers on an inner journey of transformation, sharing how salt was a necessary component along the way. Being a genocide survivor and a refugee of the Khmer Rouge killing fields of Cambodia, he developed the SALT model, surviving, adapting, loving, and transforming, as a means of helping him overcome the struggles of his youth, including prejudice, abuse, as well as childhood violence and dyslexia. Here to talk now about his story as well as his book, I am joined by the Kotouc Endowed Chair and Professor at Bellevue University, and also COO of Global Education Initiatives at Ztudium, Dr. Emad Rahim. Did I say it right? Ztudium?
Ztudium.
Ztudium. Okay, I got it. Dr. Emad Rahim, our guest here. Thank you so much for joining us on the Social Justice Forum.
I'm happy to be here, Daren. How you doing today?
I'm doing good, brother, and it's good to have you here sharing with us as we talk a little bit about your work, your life, and really your story, because your story is so impactful. When we talk about social justice, that's the topic of this show. But literally, somebody such as yourself who really has come from a really troubled past to a very glowing and powerful present, and definitely looking to a powerful future. Talk to us a little bit about your work, because I'll start off with your life, right? Growing up in the killing fields of Cambodia, not an average person's journey.
Yeah. You know, it's a story that I didn't know too much about until I would say my late teens.
Mm-hmm.
And I was one of those people that were afraid of learning about my history, because, you know, once you learn about your history, once you know your story, you have to own it, right? You're responsible for it. And I think I was afraid of it for a very long time. And also, I didn't want to, stick out, especially in a community that's predominantly Puerto Ricans, predominantly Black. There's not too many people that look like me on the west side of Syracuse, in Sunset Park, Brooklyn. So I didn't want to stick out, right? And it wasn't until I want to say I was about 18, 19, when I started asking those hard questions, like, who is my father? Right? Where's my father from? And what exactly was the situation like when I was born? And I found out that I was born in a concentration camp. So not a refugee camp, but a concentration camp. And the day that I was born, my father was being tortured. He was eventually executed. I had an older brother that I never met that died of starvation and illness in the same camp. That we also spent almost 2 years in a refugee camp in Thailand. And it wasn't until I was probably about 4 is when we arrived to America, and we ended up in Syracuse, but then quickly moved to Sunset Park, Brooklyn, New York. And that's where that's when I started like as far as back I could remember. I remember Sunset Park, Brooklyn, 61st Street.
Mm-hmm. So you remember that, but as far as the early beginnings of being over there in a concentration camp, when you found out that you were actually a product of a concentration camp, and knowing how, your father died, and knowing the struggles with your brother, talk to me about your immediate reaction.
So in regards to the full scope of the story, I learned about the full scope of the details when I was 18, 19. But actually, back when I was about 13, I discovered that my stepfather was not my biological father, actually, because when we came to America, my mother had gotten married in the refugee camp. She met a man, and he became my stepfather. But until I was about 13, I always was brought up believing he was my biological father. And it wasn't until he was an abusive man. And it wasn't until I was about 12 when we got into a big fight, and I ran away because I was afraid that he was going to kill me. And I was homeless for about 2 weeks, living out on the streets of Syracuse, New York. And I ended up living with my adopted uncle and my adopted sister, an older sister that was married. And I stayed with her about another 2 years, and then I got into a fight with my uncle, and it was the fight that brought out that the truth. During the fight, he called me a bastard, right? And it was was me asking more questions about what does he mean by calling me a bastard. And it wasn't until that when I realized that he wasn't my father, and it changed everything, right? It made me question my life. It made me question my past. It made me question my truth.
And the truth is that you were able to persevere and make it, but not without a struggle. You author a book now, and it's talk about resilience, and it just recently came out. Talk to us about resilience and how that's coming forward.
I did a lot of reflection writing this book. It took about I would say it was 4 years. I kept on writing, and then I would throw it away, write it, throw it away. And I went to Phoenix, Arizona. I got invited by another author who did a lot of leadership writing, and he knew that I was frustrated in writing this book. So he invited me to do almost like a vision board project. We went to his house. He asked me questions. We went over my story, and he kind of spread everything, almost like what's behind me. Like
Oh,
he spread pieces of my stories all over the place, and we combined it. And then he goes, as an educator, I don't know if you want to write this like a traditional memoir. Maybe you should write like a workbook, and use it as a tool to inspire and motivate people. And instead of writing a traditional book, let's invite people to write their own thoughts and ideas. So that's where resilience came out about in regards to the proper tools and techniques. I never really had that, right? I never went to some type of workshop. I never got therapy. It was my resilience, right? The life experiences, the trials and tribulations of learning from trials and errors, overcoming adversity. That's what made me stronger, right? That's what made me reflect on life and made me want better and do better. So we use resilience as a model to kind of push people forward and make people think about their life and their own journey. And instead of thinking about only the bad things, think about the good things that they've also experienced. Think about the positivity in their life, and look for those tools, techniques, lessons learned in those life experience to move you forward. And that's where resilience came about. That's where the SALT model came about, where you mentioned survive, adapting, love, and transformation.
and that's a powerful model, Salt. But talk about the transformation, because you've actually been able to make this transformation. And as I started, you're an award-winning. You're award-winning. You've got an educational platform that is, second to none. TEDx speaker. When did that transformation occur for you to say, listen? Because a lot of people can look at their past and say, you know what, I'll check out because of all these bad things that have actually happened. You've actually taken your past and been able to parlay it into an amazing life story. When became the day for transformation for you?
Right. So it was bits and pieces of my life. So I don't think anyone woke up one day and said, "Hey, I had it." It's only in the movies, right? Like they woke up one day, I had it, and everything changes. They go cold turkey, and they change their life. It was bits and pieces. I think the first half was me owning my story, me making the commitment to finish school, having a mentor by the name of Mr. Willie Dardell, who supported me, who took me in as his almost like his adopted son, and pushed me forward. But I think the real transformation was when I got married. I got married at 21. I met and wed my wife, in a month. We've been married 21 years now. And then my daughter was born, and it changed everything. It made me look at my life. It made me more motivated. I wanted more for her. And then it was like bits and pieces of those things, right? Like I was always the person that had to work extra, right? So I always worked 3 or 4 jobs and then went to school. And I realized that's not a true that's not real life, right? That's not something you want to live, right? Where you're
Mhm.
constantly living check to check, where you're working weekends, evenings, where you don't see your children, you don't see your wife, and you're just trying to make ends meet. And I realized that's not what I want. And I realized education is my path out. And luckily I had a professor that realized that I was dyslexic, right? He realized that I was dyslexic. And instead of giving me sympathy, he provided me empathy, right? And provided me resources, guidance, and support that fueled my dyslexia into something that I could use. And this is where resilience come about. Instead of
Mhm.
looking at dyslexia as a weakness, instead of looking at my past experiences as a weakness, he explained it as a journey. This is a journey that will make you stronger, and dyslexia is actually a good thing for you. It's not a label, it's an empowerment tool. And that's how I explained it to him. He said, listen, it's not a label, it's not a stigma. It's only a label and stigma if you make it. It's an empowerment tool because now you realize you could learn. You just learn different. And that
Right.
was a powerful experience. I think that was probably the thing that transformed my life in regards to being an educator, right?
But you've also become, but not the country, but you've also become a vessel that gives this information of power and empathy out, right? And so I think that when you talk about power and empathy, this is something that you receive, but it's also something that you're now imparting to people as being an important life force.
When it comes to empathy, you just can't receive it, right? You have to give it back, right? That to me is an important piece when it comes to being an educator, when it comes to being an entrepreneur, when it comes to be a social justice activist. Whatever you do in order to improve your life, you have to be able to transform the life of the people around you, right? You can't live your life as a silo and expect everything to be perfect. And I know I would not be here if it wasn't for those people that supported me, that pushed me, that mentored me. I had a lot of great mentors in my life. So I would never say I did this alone. It was just one person, or it was a one experience, or I woke up one day. There was always a lot of people that pushed me, that pulled me, that that shoved me, right? Refused to give up on me. And so I refuse to give up on people. Take that very serious, right? I have long, deep conversation with that person. Say, listen, if you're asking me to be a mentor and I accept this, it doesn't end in a year or two. This is a long life journey, right? It's a long life friendship, and sometimes it's going to be good, sometimes it's going to be bad, but I'm there for you, right? And because those people were there for me.
Right. And when we talk about being there for people, you are there as an educator. You're an educator right now. And all of us are trying to navigate this COVID-19 pandemic. Talk to me about being that educator in a time such as this. What's it been like for you trying to reach the masses and to take them to a higher level in education, given the fact we're amidst the pandemic?
Yeah, it's been a roller coaster, right? I think that's probably the best way you can describe it. I was fortunate enough where I've always taught predominantly online, right? Most of my classes that I've taught, the programs that I operate as a dean were majority online or hybrid already. And I come from a hybrid background because as a working adult, I've always had to go to school and work full time. So I know what that space is like from both as an educator and as a student. Um, my struggles often it's the experience and ability that I had before COVID was to connect with people in real life, real time, and in a personal space, because I spent most of my time traveling the country, talking at graduations, facilitating workshops, giving keynote speeches, giving commencement speeches, doing book signings. So I'm always out there in the public, just spreading love. And then now it's a different experience trying to do the same thing over Zoom, right? Over Skype, trying to motivate, inspire somebody by way of storytelling, without being in front of them, right? Without giving that energy, without giving that emotion. And then also, it's very hard to receive that energy, right? When you stay at someone back in Zoom and they give you that glaze, that glaze look.
Glazed and confused look? Yeah.
But I think I'm still blessed in regards to that. I think the thing that we have to consider all those teachers in public school, right? The ones that are teaching for the first time and struggling to provide the same quality of education to kids, right? The kids that are at home also that are also struggling, right? That are also juggling. I mean, we have kids in our community that don't have strong wireless, that don't have the right technology. Their parents are not equipped. Their parents are not educated in regards to how to use this technology, and they may be working adults, right? So we
Right.
have, we have young people, we have teenagers that are maybe at home going to school, but also taking care of their siblings, fixing them lunch, breakfast, dinner while their parents are working, and they're trying to do this while also going to school and working with a teacher that is also struggling on their end. So I think that's where the empathy and sympathy and conversation and resources I think needs to go.
Uh, I got a question for conversation. I'm looking at you right now, and I'm looking right behind you. What is going on behind you on that board? I mean, I see a whole lot of stuff. What's that?
Well, it's instead of not instead I'm trying to be productive, right? So if I'm not flying around and meeting people, I figured I just get more certifications, right? So this is actually an agile project management certification. There's like principles, values. My background is in project management, so this is more of an IT certification that I'm preparing for, and it actually, I mean, look at this. It took over my entire back wall, and there's sticky notes all over the floors. There's books. It's a mess in here.
You should see my place. I got books all over the place myself. I mean, I think COVID-19. I mean, I really was, a guy who studied, but I mean, I think my books, my studies just increased so much more during COVID-19 because we just can't go out and do the things that you want to do. But I want to get a chance before we get out of here for you to just give a little message to possibly, a young person that might be out there struggling educationally, somebody who may feel like, listen, I haven't had the best background, but yet and still resilience and being able to make it.
Yeah, so going back to the tools that I mentioned, right? So I didn't go to those top schools. I barely graduated high school. Much of my young adult life was working in human services, working with foster children, working with at-risk children. So I didn't make a lot of money, right? I went to community college, struggled in community college, was an EOP student, lost my EOP scholarship actually. But
Mm.
once again, reflecting on my resilience, reflecting on everyone's resilience, it's knowing that you have this grit, you have this ability inside of you, right? You just need to utilize it. You need to look inward, right? Instead of outward, look inward and understand that you have overcome a lot. You have overcome a lot of adversity. You have overcame just tremendous trials and tribulations to get here, and you're still here. But in order to move forward, you have to create a plan, right? You have to put that plan in action. You have to surround yourself by positive people that will push you, that will love you, that will motivate you. And this is where the SALT model came in, right? The SALT model stands for survival, adapting, love, and transformation, because many of us are just in the survival mode, right? We're living day to day, check to check. We're just trying to make ends meet, right? But that's not a way to live, right? So once you understand and acknowledge you're in survival mode, we have to move you to adapt. And once you adapt, you can be able to be a lot more agile. You can create a plan. You can make sure that you're putting yourself in the right environment to move forward. So adaptation requires you to create tools and techniques to help you move forward. And then we need to surround ourselves with people that love us. And that's something, as a young man growing up on the west side of Syracuse, in Sunset Brock, Brooklyn, raised by a single parent, I didn't really know what love was, especially love from my brothers, love from another man, love from a father figure. I never understood that. Never, no one explained that to me. But once I realized that, it's a powerful tool. It's a powerful message. It's a supportive, motivating message. So surround yourself with people that love you, that push you, that fuel you, right? And luckily, I have an amazing wife that does that. So when you have all these things in place, then you move to the transformation mode, right? You move to a process where you think about where you want to be, where you want to go, right? It doesn't have to be big, right? It could be steps. Next year I want to earn this degree, or 2 years I want to earn my master's, and then 3 years I want to be in this position. But when you do that, you have to figure out, what does it take for me to get there, right? What does it look like? What do I need to do? What do I need to have? What do I need to know? So you put that goal up here, and you create those steps to get there.
Dr. Emad Rahim, thank you so much for joining us here on the Social Justice Forums. Before we leave, please, I want to give you an opportunity to tell people how they can get a copy of that book.
Well, you can get the book, Resilience from the Killing Fields of Cambodia. Look it up in, actually, the Killing Fields to the Boardroom. Look it up on Amazon.com. Look up my name. So Emad, E-M-A-D, last name Rahim, R-A-H-I-M, right on Amazon. Thank you.
All righty. Dr. Emad Rahim, our guest here on the Social Justice Forum. Thank you, my brother, for being with us and sharing here on the show.